So, I just released a video of some of my Wheel of Time hot takes, and I thought I had gotten them all out there, but then, well, as it happens, conversations with other fans reminded me of a few more of my hot takes, so here you are, you're getting a few more. Of course, before we go into this, spoiler warning. Spoiler warnings in this video. We'll talk about season one of the Wheel of Time TV show and go as far as Winter's Heart, which is book 9 of the Wheel of Time. So if you've watched the first season and you've read up to that book, to book 9, you are good to go. Otherwise, go away or make your own decisions. I'm not your mom. And with that out of the way, let's go.
Let's be nerdy with. Let's be nerdy. Let's be nerdy. Let's be nerdy with. Let's be nerdy with. Let's be nerdy. Let's be nerdy with.
All right. So I'm going to begin with a fairly broad hot take, and as always with my hot takes, these are just my personal takes, my opinions. So grains of salt and all that. Okay, my first broad hot take is that there should be female Taviran in the books. There are in the show, but in the books there are none. And this isn't something that I actually thought about when reading the books the first time, or even the first dozen or so times. This didn't occur to me until reading, I think it was The Companion, because yeah, I am that much of a nerd. I have read The Companion and the Big White Book of Bad Art as well. In one of those books, and I think it's The Companion, there's a mention that some believe that, if I can remember which one it was, I think it's the Aes Sedai who founded the White Tower, that some people believe that she might have been a Taviran. But it's very, very speculative. Like, even in the text of The Companion, it doesn't say outright that she was or wasn't. It says that some believe that she might have been. There's just a lot of qualifiers on that. And when I read that, it just started playing around in my head. Because, yeah, the reason that I think that there should be female Taviran in the books is not for, like, girl power reasons. It's because it makes sense with the magic system of the Wheel of Time. The Wheel of Time, like the actual wheel, like not the name of the series, the wheel that turns existence in the world of the Wheel of Time, it is powered by two halves of the power, two halves of the source, two halves of the magic system. And those halves are gendered. It's a very, very binary system, but the halves are supposed to be equal and balanced. Okay, and so when I read that in The Companion about how there may have maybe have been one female Taviran in history, it started to bother me, like an itch, because that doesn't make any sense. If the pattern is balanced and the pattern demands balance, then why does it only ever seem to definitively select men as Taviran, men to weave the pattern around and affect the weaves of those around them? It doesn't make sense with the magic system of the world. And okay, I can work my way to headcanoning it in the books. The reason in the books that there are 3 male Taviran at the time of Rand's birth, or the time of Rand's living anyway, is because the pattern was using them to hide Rand. Which, of course, then what happens in the show actually makes just as much sense, if not more, because having more Taviran to hide him works better, right? And, having things be messy with people not entirely sure of the prophecies, if it's a man or a woman, it definitely fits with some of RJ's themes of knowledge being lost over time and distance. So I'm more than okay with that change that the show has made in that regard, because to me it fixes something about how the pattern works, because the pattern shouldn't only be picking boys. And okay, like I said, I can headcanon my way around it in the books for the time of the books. But then I would want to hear about female Taviran in history just to make this make sense. The pattern should be balanced. Okay, look, I know y'all so well, right? Or at least I feel like I know this fandom pretty well. And I can guess that someone is going to say that the pattern is balanced. It's the world that's imbalanced right now, and it leans female, so the pattern is spinning out these male Taviran to balance things. And yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one, because the books do not in any way feel like a matriarchy to me. In fact, RJ specifically said that they weren't. But honestly, when I found the fandom, like the online fandom, I was shocked when I found out that most, like a large segment anyway, of the Wheel of Time fandom actually thinks that the world of the Wheel of Time is a matriarchy, that the gender balance in the world leans female. Whereas to me, when I read it without any outside input, the gender balance in the world of the books feels exactly the same, almost, as the gender balance in the real world, which is kind of a patriarchy. even the fact that it's only women who have access to magic, the fact that they are hated and feared and everybody views them with suspicion, and an entirely male organization has grown up to try and kill and slaughter them. Like, right, we all live in a world where there are now, to this day, and have been throughout history, entirely male organizations that say that they are the only ones that have access to God or deities or whatever, to some sort of magical power. That is something that has actually existed in the real world. And we do not somehow, in the real world, have female organizations forming to try and slaughter and bring down these male powers, because women have not had that kind of power in the world. So the fact that in a world where only women have access to magic, you still have something like the White Cloaks forming is just one among many things that says to me that the gender power dynamics in the world of the books is not really any different from what we have in the real world. All of that just to say that, to me, the fact that there are only male Ta'veren in the books, not just like not in the time that the books are happening in those few years, because I can make that work in my head, but throughout history that we don't hear about female Ta'veren, it's just sort of a crack in the world building for me. My next hot take, I'm struggling to think of how to distill it into one sentence, because it's kind of a wide, nebulous thought that I have, and that is that we don't think about enough about how long the Aes Sedai and channelers just in general, but the Aes Sedai are the ones that we spend the most time with, how long the Aes Sedai live. For me, this hit home most when we see the Black Tower. I think it's through Elaine's eyes, and there are families there, children running around, and the tone of this scene, like, I think what it's supposed to guide us towards is to comparing this down to earth, this in touch with the world Black Tower, with the very literally isolated on their own island in an ivory white tower. I think we're supposed to be comparing them. I think that's what the narrative is pushing us to do, and to judge the White Tower and the Aes Sedai harshly for having pulled back and become so isolated from the world. I know that was the impression that I had the first time I read it. I actually held that opinion and was like, yeah, no, this is how it should be. Why aren't there families and children running around the White Tower like we have at the Black Tower? But on subsequent rereads, this judgment feels really, really premature. Because, first of all, these men have families with them because they were recruited when they were already married, right? They are not evil men. They're not just going to abandon their families. So that is just, it's the way things have to be for now. But it is in no way an indication of what things would be in the future. But it was thinking about these men, these male channelers and their wives and their children, that got me thinking about the Aes Sedai and what would happen if they had families in the White Tower. And yeah, this is where my understanding of the Aes Sedai and the way they have pulled back from the world, where my understanding of it changed. Because they live for so long, and any non-channeler that they married, unless, the Aes Sedai are killed, they will outlive any non-channeling spouse that they have. And if they have children, they will outlive their children. They will most likely outlive their grandchildren and even their great-grandchildren. And God, light forbid that any of their descendants would be a male channeler, like a male child who can channel. What do you do then? Do you actually gentle your own son, grandson, great-grandson? This is not something that I think people would do willingly en masse. Like, they would not enter into relationships with people that they know they would outlive by centuries. I can see it being an occasional thing, but not something that they do just naturally as a whole. And to add to that, okay, so I'll step back a little bit here. I've said before, when doing reactions to Heartstopper, that I don't watch high school dramas anymore, and I can't say that anymore because the last 3 shows that I've been reacting to on my channel have all been high school shows, so now that's a lie. But okay, the reason I stopped watching high school dramas for the most part is that I can't relate to high school students anymore. I have trouble getting invested in the stuff that they're stressing about because I'm old enough to know that so little of it matters in the long run. And that's me in my mid-40s, so that's what, 25 years ago? Imagine being, 160 and trying to relate to your 40-year-old husband. Like, that's gonna be hard. It's not just that you have so much more life experience than him, but it's your understanding of life and your experience of time is just it's different. It's like how for a 5-year-old, if you tell them they have to wait a week or like even an hour, to them that feels like an eternity. But here I am now, again, in my mid 40s, and I have a trip coming up in a few weeks that I have to pack for, and I've already got some anxiety about that because a few weeks is not that much time. That's because time is relative. And I don't just mean in the scientific way, E equals mc squared, whatever. I mean the way we experience time is relative to our lives. We experience time as a fraction of the life that we have lived. So when you've only lived for 5 years, a week is a massive chunk of that time. But right now, in my life, a week is a very tiny fraction of what my life is, so it feels like nothing. And Aes Sedai, who has lived for 160 years, is going to have a very different understanding of time than a non-channeler who has lived for any age, because none of them are going to make it to that age, because they don't live as long. And okay, so I brought this up in a conversation last week, and someone mentioned that it actually isn't the Black Tower that is a counterpoint to the White Tower when it comes to how isolated they are. It's the other groups of female channelers, the wise ones, the windfinders, even the kin. And that's true. But honestly, as I started thinking about it more, those groups started to feel even weirder to me because they live even longer. Like, it is odd to me that women who can live to be, 600? Is it 900? What is the outside age range for oath rod bonded, whatever, bound channelers? I can't remember how long they live. But it's odd to me that they would just keep getting married to man after man and not, like, why aren't these women marrying each other at least? Or how are they staying engaged and invested in the lives of people who are going to just come in and go out of their lives so quickly? In how they're going to experience it, these people are going to be tiny little chunks and fractions of their lives. That actually seems odder to me than pulling back and distancing yourself from the world, from the way that things work. That seems odder to me. Okay, so this is a bit of an aside, but this hot take is kind of an extension of something that always made so much sense to me, and that is the concept of the Aes Sedai advisors. Because maybe this is the brown Aja in me, but the thing that I've always thought that the Aes Sedai have that is most valuable to the world is their knowledge, their long view of history, their ability to see patterns over time, their ability to see a bigger picture, a much bigger picture than any other people, well, non-channeling people, because they literally will have seen more happen over the course of their lives. And I know that this was not really something that was really within the scope of the story that was being told in these books, but it was something that I kind of wish we'd gotten to see play out more. We get one sort of example of it that I'm aware of that I can remember with Swan, but it's an example that failed, and so it didn't really scratch that itch for me. Anyway, all of that to say that, well, I don't know if this is something that RJ intended us to think. For me, now, the isolation, the way that the Aes Sedai are somewhat removed from the world, makes perfect sense to me, given how different their life experience is going to be from anyone else, or any non-channeler anyway. And so the comparison that I think, I think the book is leading us to make between the isolation of the White Tower and the, what's the opposite of isolation? The integration, the intermingling of the Black Tower is unfair. And I don't even think you can compare the future of the Black Tower with the past of the White Tower, because the Black Tower is going to exist in a world where there are female channelers that, for those of them who are romantically and sexually interested in women, that they can safely enter into relationships with, knowing that they won't outlive them by centuries. So their future is in no way comparable to the White Tower's past. Okay, my next hot take. Logain. Okay, I have to say this hot take hurts me because I like Logain, or at least I want to like Logain, and so I'm so conflicted about my feelings for him. But okay, here's my hot take. Logain is worse than Alana. Okay, Alana, in the books, as yet Alana in the show has not done the hateful thing, but for the books, in the fandom, Alana is almost universally despised for the way that she violated Rand. And I'll just say now that there are words, one specific word in particular, that is used to describe or as an analogy for what she did to Rand that I am not going to use in this video just because it will be a problem for YouTube and monetization. So, infer what you like. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so, okay, yeah. Alana is hated for bonding Rand as a warder against his will. And I think deservedly so. What she did was a clear violation of Rand and his autonomy. It is disgusting, and the hate that she gets for it is warranted. But then we have Logain. Logain did the same thing. He did the same thing to multiple women, and he did it worse. And he led other men to do the same thing to other women. Like, this thing that Alana did that is completely unforgivable is virtually ignored by the fandom at large when Logain does it to multiple women. And he does it worse. Because, okay, the bond that he puts on the women is not just a regular warder bond. The regular warder bond does apparently allow the Aes Sedai to compel their warders. But from what we see, that is not the constant state of the bond. The warders are not bound to obey every single word that their Aes Sedai says. But the bond that Logain and his men do to the Aes Sedai, it forces complete and absolute compliance and obedience. They are physically, magically unable to disobey him. He has them under his complete control. So the unforgivable thing that Alana did to one person, Logain did to multiple people, and he made it worse. And lest somebody say that that's just the only way they know how to do the bond, I really sincerely hope not, because those men are out there bonding their wives. And if they're bonding their wives with warder bonds that force compliance, then that is a whole issue. That whole tower needs to be burnt to the ground. Like, no, that is not okay. Okay. Because again, I think I know this fandom pretty well. I think I know what the argument will be here because, well, quite frankly, I've had this argument a few times online. Someone will argue that because these Aes Sedai were here to try and capture these men were well within their rights to try and defend themselves. And to that I say, what? How is something this violating a defense? Like, when it happened to Rand, people both in and out of the books equated it with an act that is unforgivable, that there is no justification for, and yet when Logain does it, people justify it. And it's unjustifiable. There are other things they could have done. Shield them, capture them, knock them unconscious, hell, still them. By this time in the books, stilling isn't even irreversible anymore. The Aes Sedai were completely outnumbered. They were not going to win at all. The men could have defended themselves with any number of ways. Men are stronger in the power than women. The women were outgunned so much, but they went with this. They went with this despicable, unconscionable, utter violation of multiple people, and then completely took away all of their autonomy. And on top of that, Logain sleeps with one of the women that he takes captive. And I know the books make a point of saying how she initiated it and was using it to gain knowledge, but we know about power imbalance now. Like, so even that feels gross and creepy to me. And that's even aside from the fact that when she talks about it, she makes like this big deal about how hot it is that she's weaker than him and how being weaker than men makes sex hotter. And everything about it is gross. It is so gross. And this hot take hurts me because I want to like Logain. I do. Even though he's a man who did some wars and caused a lot of death at the beginning, I still want to like him. And then he does this, and it's awful. What he does is awful. But I find myself going, can I just ignore this and keep liking him? But then I feel weird because why? Why am I forgiving him for this? Because he's charming? Because that's not an excuse. But okay, I'll move on from that painful hot take to my final hot take. And this is a very meta hot take. This is not about the books, it's about the show. But it's not even about the show, it's about how the show is talked about. So okay, here's my hot take. And it shouldn't actually be a hot take, but I feel like it is. Here it is. Opinions aren't facts, and people need to start being honest and upfront when stating their opinions and admit that their opinions are opinions and not talk about them like they're objective truths. I've seen this trend, especially among people who dislike or hate the show, where they will talk in absolutes. They'll say things like, it's bad, the writing is bad, the narrative is sloppy, the blah 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 is negative adjective. When what they mean is, I didn't like this. I didn't like the writing. I found the narrative sloppy or convoluted. I personally didn't, this was not to my taste. That's what they mean. Because their opinions, their thoughts about something that is an art form, and TV is an art form, their thoughts are subjective, and they need to say that. And I know that someone will say, well, everybody knows that. Everybody knows when watching this that it's an opinion. But no, they don't. When people state their opinions as if they're facts, there is a significant amount of people who will hear them as if they are facts. And I know this because I will watch these videos and hear the words that they say when they talk about this thing that they didn't like in absolutes and objective terms, like, oh, the writing was bad, or this obviously was poorly done, or whatever. I hear the words that they say, and those exact words will show up in comments on my videos, or replies in Twitter, or DMs, or whatever. I see these people's words, and they are used as if they're citing a scientific article or some sort of authoritative source, when what they are doing is just repeating someone else's opinion to me to counter my opinion. Like, they'll say, oh, you liked it? Well, and then they'll quote these other videos to me like it's a gotcha question. Like they've got proof that I'm wrong. When, again, all that they've done is just present another person's opinion to me. And that other person's opinion about a TV show is no more or less valid than my opinion. And it's frustrating because for some reason, people with negative opinions will talk about them as if they're fact, as if they're concrete, irrefutable facts. People with, for example, zero understanding or experience with writing will state the fact that the writing is bad. And like, okay, I have a friend who's an author, a best-selling author. She's sold over 1 million books. She likes the writing on the show. But when she talks about it, she will put all sorts of qualifiers on her thoughts because she understands that it's a matter of taste, it's a matter of what you like. And yet people with zero experience or authority when it comes to writing will talk about it as if it can only be good or bad, and as if they are somehow the arbiter of which one it is. Instead of understanding that sometimes something is just not made for you. Sometimes something is not made with you in mind, and so it doesn't fit you. Like if I put on a dress, why should I say dress? I haven't worn a dress in like 20 years. All right, so okay, if I put on a jacket, say, that is made for a much taller person with longer arms and broader shoulders, do I say that the jacket is bad? Or do I go, this jacket isn't made for me, and move on with my life and try and find a jacket that fits? I talked in a previous video about something that I thought might be a disconnect between me and some of the people who are not happy with the show. Here's another one. The show might not have been made for them, right? The show might not have been made with them in mind. And if you happen to be of a demographic that so much of the media has been aimed at for so long, that might be a bit shocking for you. A few months ago, I made a video where I talked about how I mentioned that I found the cast very, very attractive. And I think in that video, I specifically highlighted Showmin, because Showmin is so hot. Okay, Alexander, so hot. And anyway, I made that statement in that video, and in the comments of that video, again, a video where I had explicitly said that I found the cast attractive, and specifically it said that I found Min hot. Someone commented that a big problem with the show is that none of the main cast was attractive. I remember I read that comment a few times, and double-checked what video they had commented on because it didn't make any sense to me. And I replied and said something like, you do know I actually said in this video that I found the cast attractive. And they replied again that, yeah, no one finds the cast hot. This is a problem. We went back and forth a few times until they finally specified and said, young white men don't find the cast attractive. Okay, well, first of all, that's ridiculous. This random commenter on my channel thinks that he can speak for all young white men. That's nonsense. But okay, let's take him at his word. Let's imagine that this random commenter on my video somehow had managed to tap into the young white male psyche and understands what the majority of young white males find attractive. And he knows that the main cast of the Wheel of Time is not it. Let's imagine that that's true. Who the fuck cares? You know that the world is not only made up of young white men, right? Like, and recently, yay, capitalism, entertainment has figured that out, has figured out that people who aren't white men aged 18 to 39, that we also have money and disposable income to spend on movies and television and streaming services and merch, and they've begun to market to the rest of us. I think that might be another part of the disconnect. There is this demographic that is so used to being the most sought after demographic, so used to everything catering to them, that when it doesn't, instead of going, huh, this jacket is made for someone else, they go, ah, this jacket is bad. This jacket is garbage. This jacket must have been made with some nefarious feminist woke agenda. Instead of going, huh, it's not for me, they talk about it as if it's bad, and they talk about it in absolutes and act as if their opinions are facts, and it drives me crazy. Art being what it is, and remember that TV, movies, books, all of these are art forms. Your thoughts on it are, by definition, they are going to be your opinions. They are going to be subjective. It is not going to kill you to admit that. And in fact, it will probably help the discourse, help our fandom as a whole, if people just remembered to admit that their opinions are opinions. And that's a whole thing off my chest. That's been bothering me for a while, and I might have just pissed a whole bunch of people off, but there you go. Anyway, do you have any hot takes about the Wheel of Time? Book or show? Do you have any hot takes on my hot takes? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like my content and you want to support me, you can always check out my Patreon. To my patrons, as I say every time, I am so grateful to all of you. Your support means so much to me, more than you can ever know. So thank you. And with that, I will end this here. So please like, subscribe, and stick around for the art credits. Bye!